Have you ever been through an experience that you just wished was a bit more enjoyable? I know I have. Whether it be visiting a theme park, reading a book, or watching a movie, to even playing a video game, there's some things in that experience that you look at and just say, I wish that part was different, or that didn't feel necessary.
We're talking about this today.
When I first played this game in my late teens, I remember being very frustrated with it about halfway through and actually being glad once I finished playing it and not having to touch it again. It's a game I thought I would never come back to, and I know that's not a hot take or extremely controversial thing to say about this game. Most video essays you see on YouTube are about this game have very similar or mixed stances. Most people generally agree that Sunshine is still a fairly enjoyable game, but there are plenty of aspects that hold it back from being that fully beloved masterpiece that many of the other 3D Mario games are held to, especially the game right before it setting the standard for many 3D platformers to come.
But what is it that holds Super Mario Sunshine back for so many people? Is it its oddball method of completing the game compared to other 3D Mario games? Is it its janky physics, or is it the rushed nature of the game itself? Well, let's answer that question and more by taking a deep dive into this game, and I'll give you my honest takes. Welcome back to our 3D Mario retrospective, touching down on Isle Delfino, where we find out if I was too harsh on this game as a kid, or maybe we should give it some grace.
Super Mario Sunshine! Woohoo!
Alright, we begin our story on Princess Peach's plane, as Mario, Peach, and Toadsworth are heading to Isle Delfino for a tropical vacation. This is actually Toadsworth's first ever appearance in the Super Mario timeline. Yes, this will be on the test, please take notes.
Okay. Continue.
Also, Toadsworth hasn't had a physical appearance in any game outside of re-releases and remakes since the 3DS era. So I think it's fairly acceptable to deduce that Toadsworth has retired, and may in fact be dead. Oh yeah, what was I talking about again? Right, the opening cutscene. And let's screech right back to a halt because this game has voice-acted cutscenes.
Welcome to the sun-drenched tropical paradise of Isle Delfino. We're so pleased to welcome you to our beautiful home.
Voice work for Mario games isn't new. Mario's been yipping and wahooing for a few years now, and Peach does read out a letter every now and again. But in this game, when you have a cutscene, and you have someone doing voice work, they're probably going to do full-on sentences. This is unheard of. It's unprecedented for a Mario game. Except for Mario, he's still yelling and grunting. But it's an interesting change, and we'll see how that goes.
This is the first instance of Sunshine feeling like a very experimental game for the Mario series. And I do get that. Most Mario games are experimental in some way or another. But I feel like Sunshine has that to a big degree, and which we'll see quite often. Some for the better, and some for the worse. Anyway, during the in-flight video, Peach notices a strange shadow that appears to be yipping and wahooing in the background. She tries to talk to Mario and Toadsworth about it, but they are understandably fantasizing about all the tropical food, and it doesn't help that Peach is barely speaking over a whisper here. Their landing comes to a sudden halt as someone has vandalized the landing strip. And I'm not just talking about the paint strewn about everywhere, there's also a massive dent in the pavement. That is some heavy paint. Mario and crew investigate. Peach continues not to tell anyone about the sleep paralysis demon stalking her in broad daylight, and then we get control of Mario for the first time.
I mean, if you've already seen my video on Mario 64, there's only a few changes to movement here. And if you haven't, well... Anyway.
Fundamentally, the moveset is extremely similar with some slight changes. Turning around is no longer a cause of death. Nice. Camera is pretty alright, definitely not as many problems as 64. The physics overall are less clunky than 64, and I feel that I definitely have better control over where Mario is going. You've now got a spin jump by rapidly spinning the stick in a circle and jumping, and it's fairly helpful. And the long jump... Where the heck is the long jump? We still have a button that allows us to ground pound in the air, but where that button also allowed us to crouch, crawl, and long jump in Mario 64, we now have the extremely helpful function of sidestepping like a crab. Yeah, I wish the long jump was here, but we'll take what we can get, especially since a new mechanic helps to fill that gap. And right on cue, here it is. This right here is the Flash Liquidizer Ultra Dowsing Device, though its friends simply referred to it as Flood. This was made by Professor E. Gadd, this additional human character in the Mario universe that they were trying to implement more into the mainline series of this area. He still shows up, but he's usually just in the Luigi's Mansion games at this point. This timeline just keeps getting better. Here's where we take that statement I just made about movement being pretty similar to Mario 64 and immediately throw it out the window. You no longer punch and kick, water is your weapon. And you no longer long jump, because water is your movement. When you first get Flood, you have two nozzles to switch between. The regular spray nozzle shoots out water in front of you, which can stun most enemies, wash off paint, reveal secrets. Water does everything. It also responds to the GameCube controller's analog triggers. If you're lightly pressing down on the trigger, the spray is weaker, but Mario can still move around. If fully pressed down, the spray is pretty strong, but Mario is locked in place to better aim. If you're spinning and activate the spray nozzle, Mario will pirouette while sprinkling water all around himself. You can also shotgun a blast of water right in front of you. When you switch to the hover nozzle, Mario can hover in the air for a short amount of time while slowly gaining just a bit of air. It's essentially a long jump with trading off speed for more control. Overall, I do like the long jump a bit better, but this is a fitting replacement for this game. Remember though that Flood does have a limited supply of water, but if you run out, you can simply head to any body of water and press down the trigger to refill your ammo. Yoshiaki Koizumi, one of the game's directors, said that he got the idea of a water pump when playing around with the GameCube controller for the first time. I guess the GameCube controller just has that water pump aura around it. But what if it could talk? Now that we've got our main mechanic for this game, let's take care of all the goop in the airstrip and... oh. Ew. This thing here is a proto-piranha. It's mango flavored. There's not much to this fight, just spray water into its mouth when it's open and drown it, I guess. Doing so will net us our first shine sprite. These are tropical power stars. Same function, don't worry about it. After that, we barely have any time to talk about what the heck just happened before the cops show up and throw Mario in jail.
No, I'm serious. That's a major plot point of this game.
You see, that weird shadow version of Mario that Peach has continued to see but has barely even tried to mention to anyone has been running around Isle Delfino and vandalizing, well, basically anything they can see. This causes the shine sprites to scatter because I guess they didn't like it. That's not really explained. Despite Mario just arriving on the island for the first time with royalty of a nearby kingdom vouching for his innocence, the Piantan justice system accuses him of the crime and he is tasked with community service. Well, thank goodness that he just got a weaponized water gun, whatever would he do otherwise? This whole opening does beg the question, however. Are the Piantans blind, stupid, or just bigoted towards any Italian with a mustache? Probably all three. Anyways, after a very long cutscene where we get our exposition dump, we finally get to explore our hub area, Delfino Plaza, a wonderful bustling town that... why is it so dark? This is actually a visual counter that helps to show how many shine sprites you got, aside from, well, the shine counter up in the corner. The more shine sprites you get, the more this bright spot in the middle of town will expand until eventually all of Delfino Plaza is bright and sunny once again. It's a cool immersive bit of storytelling within the world itself, and that's not all. There's a couple of bell towers on the plaza that are covered in gunk, but once you've cleaned them off and collected the corresponding shines, these bells will peel out for a few seconds every time you enter Delfino Plaza. It's a small detail, but it helps to add more atmosphere to Delfino Plaza and Isle Delfino as a whole, and make it feel more of a real place, which makes Peach's castle from Super Mario 64, iconic as it is, feel a bit empty in comparison. Heck, there's even a news cycle that plays on the bottom of the screen in Delfino Plaza, the Delfino Emergency Broadcast System, that will often add some in-world explanation and reaction to what's been going on. In Delfino Plaza, there's people to talk to, both toads from back home and also the resident Piantas that are initially very suspicious of Mario, seeing as they believe him to be a criminal, but the further you progress through the story, the more they become used to him being around, and they gain more respect for him as he cleans up the island. That's all much further into the game. For now, switch Delfino Plaza back into dark mode and let's head towards the main square. We have another proto-piranha to deal with, this one hopefully chocolate flavored. Take him out and we restore the Great Pianta statue, and on top is...
Mario?
Okay, Peach, are you blind too? I am down here. Shadow Mario promptly grabs Peach, marks his territory. Toadsworth is too shocked by this public display of indecency to act, and takes off. Luckily, Shadow Mario's biggest weakness seems to be having a hose sprayed at his back, and after enough time, he drops Peach. Despite us chasing our shadow clone around the entire plaza, some of that chase right next to the cops who are supposed to be keeping the peace and making sure that I do my due diligence. Apparently, this does nothing to help us defeat the vandalism allegations. But once we down Shadow Mario, he books it back to the statue and creates a portal. Follow him, become disassembled, and enter our first major course, Bianco Hills. Courses in this game follow a similar structure to Super Mario 64. Here you have 8 missions or episodes per course, each netting you a shine, another shine obtainable by getting 100 coins, and 2 additional secret shines, each usually being obtained in some slightly different ways. Spread that across 7 courses, and that's 77 shines. Then you got a shine for beating the game. There's small challenge areas hidden throughout Delfino Plaza that usually net 1 shine, and other shines found by simply cleaning up areas of Delfino Plaza.
But that only totals 96 shines, and there's 120 total in the game. The rest... We'll get to these in a bit.
For now, let's focus on courses. Back to Bianco Hills. It's a quaint town inhabited by piantas and with a windmill over a lake. During your time here, you'll take out another proto-piranha and also have your first encounter with Petey Piranha, fan favorite subspace emissary boss. This game has plenty of cutscenes, some would argue maybe too many, but this one introducing Petey is probably my favorite, since it's one of the few not directly related to the whole Shadow Mario storyline. It simultaneously makes Petey seem intimidating and then also reminds you that this is a Mario game. It can still be pretty goofy. The fight is good too. You gotta get water in Petey's mouth before he uses it to spit out gunk that will make you slide around and spawn enemies, and then ground pound on his stomach. Do that a few times and you win. Other than that, you got a couple of red coin missions. You can rematch Petey in a similar fight that takes place through the whole town, and apparently Petey can fly. There's a few more missions here. 2 of them consist of going to these secret areas where, oh, shucks. Most courses in this game have 1 or 2 shines that consist of having to traverse an area without FLUDD to test your platforming skills. When I first played this game, these secret stages gave me all kinds of trouble, but this time around, for the most part, these were pretty straightforward and I didn't have much problem with most of them. I will say though, it's pretty considerate of this criminal bent on defacing my public image to give me back my most powerful tool and biggest chance of defeating him after I escape whatever pocket dimension I was trapped in. Very considerate, thank you Shadow Mario. With that, episode 7 of Bianco Hills is a chase down of Shadow Mario. Hose him down enough and he'll give up a shine and leave the area. That consists of a lot of what we want to do in Bianco Hills right now. And if you took the time to get all the shines, you should definitely have 2 more gaping piles of sludge in Delfino Plaza. I've given up trying to assign flavors to these things. This one is clearly just toxic waste. Defeating the proto-piranha on the pier will open up Rico Harbor, a port town off the coast. There's a similar set of missions in this course, and you got a boss fight against Scooper Blooper, who you rematch a few episodes later. There's another floodless platforming challenge. You have a platforming challenge through the shipyard to get a shine behind a cage, and here you meet the big daddy of blooper surfing. This guy's totally a mob boss, isn't he? Here you control one of these colored bloopers and surf on the water. Depending on the colors, different bloopers will actually have different speeds and turn control. You can get a shine here by accessing an underground racing ring, and later on you use the bloopers to collect the red coins. If you haven't experienced any patented sunshine jank yet while playing the game, this will probably be your first experience with it. Sometimes these bloopers may be a bit difficult to control, and if you end up colliding with a wall, there's about a 75% chance that Mario just dies on impact. Technically, it should be every time, but for some reason the game doesn't count it as collision always. Or may count things that shouldn't be walls as walls. Despite a bit of frustration, I still had fun during this level, and after setting FLUDD to stun and snagging yet another shine for Shadow Mario, we cleaned up Rico Harbor pretty quickly too. Next up is another proto-piranha, and after you beat it, Gelato Beach. A nice, relaxed beach infested by nightmare ducks. Cataquacks will launch you up into the air if you get too close, so watch out. The first episode is Floodless Secret Course, and I was once again surprised by how simple it felt compared to my previous couple of playthroughs of this game. As I've been trying to look at this game with a more critical eye, I've somehow found myself enjoying it more.
Am I having fun playing Super Mario Sunshine? Nah, no, it couldn't be. That's impossible. It could not happen. Never, not in a million years. Never.
The next few episodes all revolve around Gelato Beach's claim to fame, the Sandbird Egg. It's supposedly some great creature that has been in this egg for about a century. But oh no! Tropical Wiggler has decided that the warm globe is a good place to take a nap, and a bunch of birds with suction cups for feet are wobbling all the mirrors that are giving the egg more light and heat. Take out the birds and the Wiggler just dies? Don't worry, he gets better. And by the next mission is understandably on a rampage after being dissolved into a bunch of chunks. You use the weird plans that you used to find the secret area earlier to make Wiggler vulnerable, and after ground pounding him a few times, he'll return to his natural form, sand. Speaking of sand, the next mission revolves around the hatching of the Sandbird. Ride the Sandbird up, collecting red coins along the way. This is a mission that plenty of people complain about when discussing this game, and I will also admit that I've had experiences with that classic Sunshine Jink with this level in the past, but again, I also had no problems here this time around. Collision worked well, and I beat the stage on the first try. But seeing as these are out here in the open, we should talk about them for a second.
Blue coins. Wahoo. Okay, for the uninitiated, there are 240 of these things scattered across the entirety of Isle Delfino. They can be A, out in the open; B, obtained after spraying these M graffiti pieces; C, if you find these matching symbols and you spray one will pop out of the other, you will get it; and D, literally spraying random junk.
If you enter the side of this hut with the entrance to Rico Harbor, you can talk to Tropical Tom Nook and trade 10 blue coins for 1 shine sprite. Yes, a fifth of the game's main collectible is only obtainable through another set of much more obscure collectibles.
And remember when I said you can get some blue coins by spraying random junk? I'm serious.
One of the biggest offenders is probably the hotel in one of the later coursers. There's a blue coin attainable by spraying this torch in particular. The others get regular coins. You can get one by ground pounding on this specific slot machine, and probably the most infamous one, spraying this random lamp in the hotel will give you a blue coin. But that is not all. No, we are not done here. Some of these blue coins are mission specific. And I'm not talking like the ones in the same bird level where of course it's the only mission that you're gonna go to the sub area. It's just the only mission you're gonna take these blue coins. No, I'm talking about blue coin spots out in the open area of the course that will simply disappear for some episodes and be available for others. Did you check up on this building in Rico Harbor? Well, you'll probably want to check over there again in a different mission. There might be another blue coin close to the same spot that wasn't there before. And there is a blue coin counter in the game that is course specific but not mission specific. So even if you know that you're missing a blue coin in Bianco Hills, you could be running around and spraying everything for hours before realizing that you're not even in the right version of Bianco Hills for the blue coin to even exist.
Do you remember a few minutes ago when I said I was enjoying playing Mario Sunshine? Those were good times.
Anyway, let's bring back the positivity a bit as we finish off Gelato Beach. Here's El Piantissimo. He likes running and challenges you to a race. Unfortunately for him, he picked a race with the one guy on this island with a water-powered jetpack, so he went pretty easily. Then we got a red coin mission in the reef, and can we take a moment and really appreciate how good the water looks in this game? I mean, I get it, the whole setting is a tropical island and water is a big part of Mario's moveset in this game, so they probably decided to prioritize how it looks, but man, this water looks really good, especially considering this game came out in 2002 and was rushed. Yeah, this game was one of the few Nintendo Crunch games. The blue coins making up a huge chunk of the shines make a lot more sense now, doesn't it? After the red coins, we got another chase with Shadow Mario, and we should head back to Delfino Plaza. Something kind of important just happened. It's a strangely Koopa-themed watercraft for a villain that resembles Mario. Alright everyone, give it up for Peach. She made it almost halfway through a 3D Mario game before being kidnapped. Shadow Mario takes Peach to Pinna Park and we quickly follow in a cannon. After confronting Shadow Mario at the pool, he reveals he has the power of hydrokinesis, and this begs the question, how does our flood affect him at all? And summons a giant Bowser mech. Again, a very strange choice for the villain that is a Shadow version of Mario. It's here that we get one of the more unique boss fights in the game. And I will be mentioning that a few other bosses in this game. Boss fights are unique in this game, for better or worse. We hop into the roller coaster and collect water-powered rockets along the way to shoot at the Bowser mech and also destroy the bullet bills that are shot at us. Please applaud at this amazing snipe I got from the other side of the park. After defeating the mech, Shadow Mario does a sick flip before revealing that he's not an evil version of Mario at all. He's Bowser Jr., who was also first introduced in this game. Hate on Mario Sunshine as much as you want. We introduced some very core characters to the later canon. This cutscene revealed that Bowser Jr. was simply given his magic paintbrush by EGAD, implying that one of the less than 10 humans that has been consistently referenced in the Mario universe is also equipping both sides like some kind of war profiteer.
Though that is just a theory.
Is that completing this mission in the game changes a lot of things in the world. You know that Peach is being held captive in Beer Mountain? Pandemic Mountain? Does saying that still lead to demonetization? It's been a few years at this point. Whatever. Bowser Jr., Shadow Mario, why is he still disguising himself? He revealed his identity to everyone at the local amusement park. Whatever. He'll show up at Delfino Plaza periodically once certain thresholds are met, holding a Yoshi egg and additional nozzles for Flood. Yes, Yoshi's in this game. You could technically find Yoshi eggs in a couple of missions before this, but Pinna Park is where they start to appear more frequently, and so I'm guessing that's why they placed the event here. Yoshi requires a certain fruit be brought to him to hatch from his egg. Once he does so, you can ride him around just like any other game with Yoshi. He can also squirt juice out of his mouth, and the color changes depending on what fruit he eats. This juice can also affect certain enemies, turning them to platforms that you can stand on. But don't let Yoshi in the water, as he's apparently made of the fruit juice that he spits out. That, or Bowser Jr. made the Yoshis on Isle Delfino, and as sentient paint, they melted water. It's actually implied that most of the enemies you face in this game were created by Jr. himself, which explains why these variations of the standard enemies seem so cartoon-like and oddly proportioned. They're literally a child's drawings brought to life. It makes sense why the Goombas don't look like Goombas and they're Stroll and Stew instead. The Koopas are Electro Koopas, and you have these weird Yoshi imposters, and yeah, Pokies are mainly the same, but they do look like something. The nozzles that you get from Junior are also area specific. It's possible that you found them in other courses previous to this, but this is how you obtain them in Delfino Plaza. The turbo nozzle lets Mario dash at high speeds after charging it up, and the rocket nozzle gives Mario incredible height after a similar charge. Flood actually had around 10 different nozzles that were considered for the game, but these 4 are the only ones that made it in, and it's probably for the best. Any more than these would have felt like a bit too much in my opinion. But moving on from power-ups in this game, let's clear out the rest of Pinna Park. We got a couple more floodless levels in here. The first one was fine, the second one I struggled with, but I put that more on me being impatient with the timing of these Yoshi blocks than the actual layout of the level. You got red coins on the pirate ships and the scaffolding around it, going under the electro Koopas here to flip them out the grate is a nice reference to grates in older games, and we have the wilted sunflowers, which essentially boils down to kill the giant Yoshi imposters since they were draining the sunflowers of nutrients, I guess. And the runaway Ferris wheel. Fun fact, the camera does not work well back here at all. I'm pretty sure I found some way to cheese a part of the scaffolding and skip to the end. Chase Shadow Mario down here, and that's pretty much Pinna Park done. Now that we can find Yoshi in Delfino Plaza, we can get rid of this pineapple blocking the pipe on this house and access Serena Beach, a hotel resort. But where's the hotel?
Well, you see, Goop. Now fight this weird manta.
This is definitely an interesting boss fight. See, I told you to come back to this. Make contact with the manta or the goop that gets left behind it. Ouch. Spraying the manta enough divides it into smaller copies, hide under one of these umbrellas, and risk a jump into the pool to refill water when you need it. Rinse and repeat until the manta is down. This is one of the weirder boss fights of this game, and yes, it probably is a reference to The Shining. Speaking of The Shining, once you enter the hotel, it's haunted. Yeah, this is the game's ghost house, and the idea of a haunted hotel with an underground casino is such an inventive idea for the Mario series that Luigi's Mansion 3 could only hope to replicate half the concept of this masterpiece. Truly, before its time. You've got a couple of floodless levels. Episode 3 is supposed to be this maze using the hotel's ventilation system, but you can just use the sun clip with a banana to skip most of the mission. The floodless level down in the casino relies on gambling to access it, and it's here that we learn how much fun it was to program this game built around water physics. I know this game was rushed, but I can't help but wonder if they left this part extra janky on purpose to show the nightmare that the devs must have gone through when making this game. There's also a boss fight with King Boo down here, at least some stoner painted version of him. I kid you not when I say the entire boss fight is let's go gambling. You can only damage him when he rolls fruit by throwing a pepper in his mouth and kicking the fruit at him. When I played this game in the past, I was convinced that the fruit would be a guaranteed hit in the first couple of pulls. Turns out, no, I've just been extremely lucky in the past. A fight that has probably taken me 3 minutes tops before was now 8 minutes of running around this stupid beach wall and begging that he stop throwing out the cataquacks. Well, if Vegas is anything like Casino Delfino, that's good enough reason for me to stay away from gambling. After that, you need to clean up the beach again, and you know the drill at this point, hose the imposter down. This chase is a bit more interesting and annoying because the boos in the hotel will disguise themselves as Shadow Mario, so you have to figure out which one is actually running from you. Cool. Next up is Noki Bay, which you access by nostalgia baiting what was at the time an 8-year-old game, which is facing a pollution problem, obviously from Bowser Jr., right? Well, no. The crazy old man living here first suggested it's the mole that has clogged up the waterfall, but the problem persists after taking care of it. We are then sent to appease the ancient Noki king by visiting his tomb, because maybe that will solve the problem? Ha! Gooper Blooper makes his grand re-return on top of the entrance to the tomb. Clearly, from such a high vantage point and his penchants for spitting ink, he must be the cause of all the pollution. Next mission, nah, the Noki Elder informs us that it's an eel down at the ocean floor of the bay with tooth decay. But before he lets us go down there, the Noki Elder understands the pain of fully underwater segments of Super Mario Sunshine, so he does his due diligence to train us on how the heck to use flood underwater, by shrinking us down into this bottle and having us look for red coins there.
Look, I've tried to explain these next 2 missions and the mechanics of how flood works underwater, but to be perfectly honest, after playing this game a few times, I don't understand how flood works in water at all.
Use the hover nozzle, I guess, to move up and down. I don't know. The more hard to reach red coins in the bottle, I feel that I just got lucky, and with the eel, I felt that I took way longer than most to finish it. The whole deal with the eel is that you're supposed to clean its teeth by spraying them, but you're also underwater and you gotta constantly stop your spraying so you go hunt for coins to refill your air meter with janky vertical controls. After defeating the eel, Flood reads off a PSA to remind us to brush our teeth. Why does this all of a sudden feel like a cheap imitation of all the scare tactic ads I saw as a kid about not smoking and vaping? After that, we get another race against Il Piantissimo, and then a chase with Shadow Mario after one of the few floodless levels that did give me a bit of frustration. This little part with the slope, I hate it. And after that, our final major course in the game is Pianta Village. And now that we've seen most of the courses in this game, I want to point out one of the major points in its favor that Super Mario Sunshine has, which is its theming. Most Mario games don't try to sell you on the actual world very much, usually explaining the vast changes in scenery by simply not, or explaining that you were exploring the whole world, or these are all enchanted paintings of different vistas, or we are literally in space, anything can happen here. But not Super Mario Sunshine. Your hub world is the capital of the island, and the locations you visit are fairly grounded and feel like they could all coexist on a tropical resort. The village in Bianco Hills, the port town of Rico Harbor, the laid-back gelato beach with a cultural legend, the tourist traps of Pinna Park and Hotel Delfino, the beautiful hidden gem of Noki Bay, and the festival culture of Pianta Village all mesh so well together to make Delfino feel like a place you would actually want to visit if it existed in real life. Think about it. Do you remember any other Mario platformer outside of the first couple of games that didn't have some dedicated ice world or ice level? Despite some other flaws this game has, Super Mario Sunshine's theming has always been something to enjoy, and I'll continue to give the game kudos for that. Remember that I have to give this game some great praise when we get later on in the video. Trust me, I have actually enjoyed the game up to this point. Anyways, back to Vianta Village. Here you'll deal with some out-of-control chain chomplets in a chain chomp where Flood gives yet another contractually obligated statement to always be kind to your pets, probably programmed in by EGAD,
so he doesn't get charged with incentivizing animal cruelty on top of war profiteering.
You got one final race with Il Piantissimo, and a mission where Flood gets yoinked right at the start, and you gotta find a way to navigate around all the burning goop that's covered in the village to get Flood back. You also have a mission where you need to wash off 10 Piantas in town in a limited amount of time, have to navigate a floodless level where Piantas take out their anger by throwing you over gaps into the bottomless void. Clearly not all the Piantas trust you yet, despite your innocence being all but proven, and one final chase with Shadow Mario. After that, it's time to finally take down Bowser Jr. and save Peach. And Delfino Plaza is flooded for some reason. Well, no time to focus on that. Let's chase Bowser Jr. into Corona Mountain. The first section of the volcano is easy. Hop between platforms and time your jumps right to avoid getting spiked. Now the second half, this is the infamous mud boat section that you've probably heard about. Moving forward and backward, it's pretty straightforward. The boat will move in the opposite direction that you're pointing Flood, since it's being propelled. But for some reason, this isn't true when moving left and right. You point Flood left, the boat will turn left. I'm done trying to argue with the physics of Sunshine, but this will throw you off if you're not used to it. And of course, if the boat makes contact with any solid surface, it will collapse and there is nothing you can do about that. If you get to the end, you can try to navigate the boat around all kinds of obstacles for blue coins. No thank you. Once you ride the rocket nozzle up the clouds, you'll find yourself facing Bowser Jr., Peach, and Bowser. Okay, here's a question that you can think about for a second. Does Bowser even need to be in this game? Sure, he's the main villain of most Mario games, but I'd say Jr. has done plenty here to establish himself as the main antagonist. All Bowser does is give you a shock factor with his sudden appearance and his size, and adds the tiniest bit of challenge to the final fight as a whole, which is still fairly easy. You just have to rocket over each of these symbols and ground pound from a tall height, every now and then also avoiding Bowser's flames and Jr.'s rockets. Did we need Bowser here? But anyways, take them all out, Peach is saved, Bowser and his son are defeated, and the game reminds me that I'm supposed to care about Flood for a couple more minutes. But with that, enough Shine Sprites have been safely returned to Isle Delfino to cause a celebration. Mario is presumably declared innocent, we hope. Junior's paintbrush is found by Piantissimo, and Bowser thankfully clears up that questionable issue with his son.
Hey, editing Josh here. I just realized that I didn't even bring up what that questionable issue with Bowser Jr. was. I'm just going to show this clip, and that should answer all your questions.
Junior, I've got something difficult to tell you about Princess Peach.
I know, she's not really my mama.
And that is Super Mario Sunshine. Is what I would say if there wasn't still half the game to talk about. The criteria for opening the ending of the game is different from most other 3D Mario games. The only context for 3D Mario at the time of release was Super Mario 64, which had a simple 70-star barrier before you could access the final boss. It's a number that makes sense. It's big enough that it requires you to collect stars from most stages, and at the same time it's still well under the 120-star maximum that would take much more time and require you to complete stars that may have given you a lot of trouble. No one star is absolutely required to beat the game, and glitches aside, the only main requirement being that you collected at least one from a bomb battlefield. Compare that to Mario Sunshine's clear requirement, that is simply complete each 7th episode from each of the 7 main courses. These are each of the Shadow Mario chases, and they are the only actual requirement for beating the game. If you were to somehow find a way to only get these specific 7 shines, you should now be able to access Corona Mountain. Again, glitches aside, the normal way you would reach this threshold is by getting 7 shines in each of the courses, though episode 1 of the Yaga Hills can technically be skipped without glitches, as well as the shine you get from defeating the Proto Piranha on the airstrip, and that levels out to a nice even 50, becoming 51 once you beat the game. I'm a bit mixed on this requirement. Thematically, it makes sense that you want to finish all the Shadow Mario missions before confronting Junior in the volcano. Mechanically, and especially compared to games like 64 and Odyssey, Sunshine gatekeeping the endgame behind very specific missions feels weird and antithetical to the concept behind those Mario games of you finding your own path to beating the game. And it goes completely against the sandbox nature of 64, its predecessor, despite having a very similar setup in most other aspects. And it's here that I want to introduce 3 different archetypes for players of Super Mario Sunshine, and this will tie into that question earlier in the video of what is it that makes people not like this game.
Alright, editing Josh here again. I was going over this script and I realized that even though I say I'm about to answer this question, the way I do is fairly vague and I don't feel like I provide it in a very concise format. So I'm just going to do that right here. And then I'm going to let past me ramble on a bit more and provide more specifics. Super Mario Sunshine is a very fun game. Most of its fun parts can be found in the required missions to confront Bowser Jr. on Corona Mountain and see credits. There are still a few shines that have problems in this path, it's true, but I feel like the amount of hit or miss shines is way smaller in this required path than on the shines you see on Isle Delfino, with the blue coins, with the 8th missions. Again, we'll talk about all those aspects later on. That is the not required, some semi-post game that, again, past me is going to talk about in a bit. But there you go. That's the main problem. Back to the video. Thanks for putting up with my just rambliness.
And it probably boils down to you being in one of these 3 archetypes. Now, none of these archetypes are bad per se. They're just different ways for different people to go through playing video games. And here we'll just apply it to Super Mario Sunshine. That first one is the speedrunner. And it's not speedrunner in the traditional sense. It's not someone who's going to go for world records in this game. Rather, the speedrunner is the type of person who will play a video game, beat the video game, go, that was nice, and then move on to the next video game, likely not picking up the one they just played again for years, or maybe ever. The speedrunner, when playing Sunshine, will likely go for the quickest path to each of the Shadow Mario episodes if they know the criteria for beating the game. If they don't, it's likely that they'll go for what most would assume the criteria would be at the time of release, 70 shines, the criteria for the previous game. This can lead to some potential frustration or confusion on how to reach the end of the game, and then once they do figure it out, if they're not going for 100%, it makes all shines outside of those required for unlocking Corona Mountain useless. All those shines you got exploring Delfino Plaza, the secret shine you found in Gelato Beach, all those blue coins, you didn't need those to beat the game. Well, you know, that was outside of what you were trying to do. Extra stuff, not required material. Now, I know I'm exaggerating this concept. Most people would notice that they just spend extra time with the game, maybe be mad at themselves that they spent a bunch of time on this hard level that they didn't need to spend time on, and just move on. But let's take that potential linear and focus it on our next archetype, the completionist. The completionist is self-explanatory. This is the type of person that is going to get every single ounce of content possible out of this game. They will get every shine and blue coin. And while I've talked mostly about the shines that lead directly to the end of the game, let's mention briefly some of the other shines, since this is where most people in the completionist category will be going for them. And they're well-known, notorious, you know the drill. The 8th episodes in each course range from simple, like another Red Coins mission in Bianco Hills and Oki Bay, to more difficult and janky mechanics like the Watermelon Festival in Gelato Beach and roller coaster balloons in Pinna Park. There's really simple shines at Delfino Plaza, like spraying the ground near the lighthouse, to the incredibly janky Pachinko level. You combine all of these with a 100% reward that is literally just a picture at the end of the credits. The completionist will either walk away from this game learning to really love it despite all of its flaws, or hold it with contempt and look back on the game with some form of PTSD. And given that most people that make videos on YouTube go for 100%, go for this completionist route to give a more informed view on the game, you can see where these 2 very different ideas just branch off. People either have serious problems with this game and just can't look past them, or spend so much time in this game that they learn to look past those mistakes and just have a good time. And that brings us to the last category. And this is where most of us would, I believe, be at. And that's the casual fan. This is the person who will play the game to the end, have a good time. They probably have played plenty of other Mario games and then say, hey, I'm down to play a bit more of this game. And they'll get some more shines, do what they feel is comfortable, and end up probably not going for 100%. They'll get blue coins that they see along the way, but don't feel the need to go for every single one. No obligation to get everything. And that's probably the best way that you can get enjoyment out of this game. Go at your own pace, kind of just hit your own limit and realize, okay, this was fun. I don't want to negate this view, my positive view of this game, so I'm just going to move on. And most of us, again, probably fall into this category. And I think it's the best way to get the maximum amount of enjoyment out of this game. And when I first played Super Mario Sunshine, I was definitely in the speedrunner category of this list that I made. I was playing it on 3D All-Stars package on the Switch, and it was shortly after playing Super Mario 64 for the first time as well. I was getting used to accepting the fact that I'm not necessarily the best at video games in general, and going for 100% in games that I was playing for the first time was probably something that I shouldn't be beating myself up for not being able to do, especially after trying for a while to 100% Super Mario 64 and getting burned pretty bad at some of the missions in the game. It's because of that I went to Sunshine with probably not the best attitude. I'd already been told of its controversial nature, and it was more of an era of, let's get this over with, since I did pay for this game too. And I also didn't have a GameCube controller at the time, so I was stuck with the modified Switch controls. Quick sidebar, if you want to enjoy Mario Sunshine as much as possible and you're playing on the Switch, use a GameCube controller. The game was built around being able to quickly switch between spraying while moving and fixing your position while spraying through the analog triggers. And while having two buttons really close to each other in the Switch controls is probably the best they could have done, the analog triggers here work so well with this game, and it's leagues better than a Switch controller can do. All that combined with an impatient outlook on the game, and I was practically dragging myself through the missions by the time I got to Noki Bay. And I was worried that while playing the game again, for this video, that same sour attitude would persist, and while in an attempt to remain honest with my feelings in this video, it would just turn into a rant session. But I found myself pleasantly surprised. I thoroughly enjoyed most of the required missions for Corona Mountain, and while there were a few that I still struggled with and had a bit of frustration, I quickly realized that it was mainly due to me trying to rush through the floodless missions, and I wasn't taking it slow and planning my movement very much. And a lot of the other optional shines for 100% completion definitely gave me more grief and made me more frustrated. But some of them weren't as bad as I remembered. Some of them were as bad as I remembered, but I did want to give each of them an honest try. Did it overall lower my view of the game after I'd gone through all this? Yeah, for sure. And is this game have problems? Yes. Was it rushed? Yes. Were the blue coins a bad idea? Absolutely. But the theming, the charm, the goofy voice lines, and many of the mechanics are really neat. It turned Mario Sunshine from an experience that I had to mentally prepare for to something that I was willing to jump right back into. But Super Mario Sunshine, despite its flaws, has gained a lot more respect in my eyes. I was very happy to be proven wrong in my initial impressions from when I was a teenager.
Compared to other 3D Mario games, it certainly is lacking, but I was so happy to be proven wrong and have an enjoyable time. But thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Have a relaxing vacation.